The grand hall of the alien palace glittered with strange, iridescent lights. Hovering orbs floated above the dining tables, casting soft hues of green and blue. Alien dignitaries from the Zorvax species, known for their cunning and advanced biochemistry, had invited the human delegation for an intergalactic peace dinner. They had a deadly plan. For centuries, the Zorvax had considered humans a threat. Humans had spread rapidly through the galaxy, colonizing planets and forming alliances. To the Zorvax, this dinner was not about peace. It was an opportunity to eliminate their rivals. The head chef, a meticulous Zorvax named Glyn, prepared the centerpiece of the meal, a dish infused with Varaxian bloom, a flower deadly to most carbon-based life forms. To the Zorvax, it was a strategic masterpiece. Humans would unknowingly eat the poisoned delicacy, and by the time the effects kicked in, it would be too late. The humans entered the hall, led by Ambassador Karen Mitchell. They were greeted with formal nods and restrained smiles. Karen's team marveled at the alien architecture, noting how every detail seemed alive. Karen herself was calm but observant. She had heard stories of Zorvax deception, but decided to trust the invitation to an extent. The dinner began with polite chatter. Plates of exotic food were presented, each dish more dazzling than the last. Then came the main course, a steaming platter of vibrant, glowing noodles garnished with alien herbs. The Zorvax called it Lurvax essence. It was a traditional dish, they claimed, a symbol of hospitality. The humans, unaware of the sinister plan, eagerly dug in. Karen took a cautious bite. The flavors exploded in her mouth, unlike anything she had tasted before. The texture was silky, and the taste was a perfect mix of sweet, tangy, and spicy. Her eyes widened in surprise. Around her, the rest of the human team was having the same reaction. The alien hosts exchanged subtle glances, waiting for their inevitable collapse. "This is amazing," Karen exclaimed, turning to her Zorvax counterpart, Minister Zin. "What's in it?" Zin's expression froze. "Ah, it's a family recipe," he stammered. "Very traditional." Karen's curiosity piqued. "Family recipe? You must share it with us. The flavors are incredible. What's the spice that gives it this kick?" The other humans chimed in with similar enthusiasm. They complimented the dish's balance, its unique glow, and even its presentation. Glyn, standing in the kitchen doorway, nearly dropped his ladle. This wasn't supposed to happen. The humans were supposed to be writhing on the floor, not asking for the recipe. It's a secret ingredient," Zin managed to say, beads of sweat forming on his scaly forehead. Karen leaned forward, a warm smile on her face. "Come on, Minister Zin. We're building a new alliance here. Sharing a recipe would be a great gesture of friendship." Zin's mind raced. Refusing outright would look suspicious, but sharing the recipe might reveal the presence of the Varaxian bloom. He glanced at Glyn, who gave a subtle shake of his head. "Perhaps another time," Zin said nervously. "For now, enjoy the meal." The humans shrugged and continued eating, clearly enjoying themselves. Karen noticed Zin's unease but decided not to press further. The dessert was served next, a shimmering jelly that quivered like it was alive. By the end of the meal, the humans were laughing and chatting freely, their initial formality replaced by genuine enjoyment. Meanwhile, the Zorvax hosts were in turmoil. They couldn't understand how the humans had survived the poisoned dish. Zin excused himself and rushed to the kitchen. "What went wrong?" he hissed at Glyn. "Nothing," Glyn whispered back. "I followed the recipe exactly. The Varaxian bloom should have incapacitated them instantly. Then why are they asking for the recipe?" Zin demanded. Glyn had no answer. The humans' resilience was beyond their comprehension. Back in the dining hall, Karen's aide leaned over and whispered, "Did you notice how nervous they looked?" Karen nodded. "Oh, definitely. They're hiding something. But let's keep them guessing too. For now, let's just enjoy this amazing food." As the evening ended, Karen stood to make a toast. "To new beginnings," she said, raising her glass. "And to the chefs who make peace taste so good. We can't wait to exchange recipes with you." The Zorvax barely managed to smile. As the humans left, laughing and satisfied, Zin turned to Glyn. "We need to rethink everything we know about humans," Zin muttered. Glyn nodded. "And maybe find a new poison." Meanwhile, back on their spaceship, Karen and her team were already discussing how to replicate the dish. "I think it had a hint of citrus," one of them said. Karen grinned. "Whatever it was, we're putting it on the menu for the next Earth Gala." The humans had no idea they'd just survived an assassination attempt. All they knew was that they'd discovered a fantastic new recipe, and that was enough for now. The glittering halls of the Starship Unity were alive with anticipation. This was no ordinary dinner. The humans and the Zorvax, two of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations, were meeting to sign a peace treaty after years of tension. The dinner was meant to seal the deal, a symbol of trust and cooperation. But for the Zorvax, it was also an opportunity to carry out a sinister plan. Minister Zin, the Zorvax leader, watched from his seat at the head of the table. His people had spent weeks preparing for this moment. The centerpiece of the meal was a dish called Toxlyre, a traditional Zorvax delicacy. It was beautiful to look at, with shimmering layers of violet and gold, but it was laced with a deadly toxin one that would incapacitate any human who ate it. For the Zorvax, this was not just dinner. It was a final blow to their rivals. The humans, led by Ambassador Karen Mitchell, entered the dining hall with warm smiles. Karen was cautious but optimistic. She knew the Zorvax reputation for deception, but she also believed in diplomacy. Her team took their seats, admiring the grandeur of the alien table settings. Karen's eyes lingered on the Toxlyre, intrigued by its glowing colors. "Welcome, honored guests," Zin said, his voice smooth and practiced. "Tonight, we share a meal that represents the unity we hope to achieve." Karen raised her glass. "To new beginnings," she said, and the rest of the room echoed her toast. The meal began with appetizers, small bites of alien fruits and cheeses that delighted the human guests. Laughter and polite conversation filled the air. Then came the main course. The Toxlyre was placed before each guest, its aroma rich and enticing. Karen's team hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to approach the unfamiliar dish, but Karen took the lead. She picked up her utensils and took a small bite. Her eyes widened. The flavors were extraordinary, a perfect balance of sweet, spicy, and savory. The texture was unlike anything she had ever tasted, soft, yet with a slight crunch that melted in her mouth. She smiled. "Minister Zin, this is incredible," she said. "What is this called?" Zin's composure faltered for a moment. It is Toxlyre, a dish of great importance in our culture," he replied, cautiously. "It's amazing," Karen said, taking another bite. Around her, the other humans were doing the same, murmuring their appreciation. The Zorvax watched in stunned silence. The toxin was supposed to act quickly, but the humans showed no signs of distress. Instead, they seemed genuinely delighted. "Minister Zin," Karen continued, "you must share this recipe with us. Our chefs would love to learn how to make something so extraordinary." Zin blinked, unsure of how to respond. Sharing the recipe would reveal the presence of the toxin, but refusing would seem suspicious. He forced a smile. "Perhaps one day. For now, let us enjoy the meal." Karen nodded and returned to her plate. She couldn't help but notice the unease among the Zorvax, but she decided not to press the issue. The dessert was served next, a delicate, jelly-like confection that shimmered in the light. By the end of the meal, the humans were laughing and exchanging stories, the tension from earlier completely gone. As the dinner concluded, Karen stood to make a toast. "Tonight, we not only share a meal, but also a vision for a better future. Minister Zin, your hospitality has been remarkable. Let this be the first of many dinners between our people." The humans raised their glasses, and the Zorvax did the same, though their enthusiasm was noticeably muted. Zin's mind was racing. How had the humans survived the toxin? Were they immune? Or had his chef made a mistake? After the humans left, Zin hurried to the kitchen, where the head chef, Glyn, was waiting. "What happened?" Zin demanded. "Why didn't the toxin work?" Glyn looked just as baffled. "I followed the recipe exactly. The Toxlyre should have been lethal to humans." Then why are they still alive? Zin growled. Glynn hesitated. Perhaps humans have a higher tolerance for the toxin than we anticipated. Or maybe their digestive systems neutralized it. Zin sighed, his plans unraveling before him. This changes everything. We cannot underestimate them again. Meanwhile, aboard the human ship, Karen and her team were in high spirits. That was the best alien dish I've ever had, one of her aides said. Karen nodded. It was amazing. But did you notice how nervous they looked? Definitely, another aide replied. Think they were hiding something? Karen smiled. Maybe. But if they were, it doesn't matter now. What matters is that we made it through the dinner and set the tone for cooperation. And we got to try an incredible new dish. That's a win in my book. As the ship sped away from the Zorvax star system, Karen couldn't help but feel a sense of triumph. The dinner had changed everything, not just for the treaty, but for the way humans and Zorvax saw each other. What had started as a deadly trap had turned into a chance for understanding and perhaps even friendship, all because humans just couldn't resist good food. The Galactic Culinary Competition was the most prestigious event in the known universe. Every year, species from across the galaxy gathered to showcase their culinary prowess. This year, for the first time, humans were invited to participate. The stakes were high, as the winner would gain not only glory, but also significant political leverage in intergalactic alliances. The human delegation, led by Chef Amanda Carter, arrived on the competition station with a mix of excitement and nerves. Amanda, a rising star in Earth's culinary world, was determined to prove humanity's worth. However, the humans knew little about their competitors, especially the Zorvax, a species infamous for their cunning and secretive ways. As the competition began, each team was given access to a wide array of exotic ingredients from different planets. The challenge: create a dish that represented the essence of their species. Amanda and her team brainstormed for hours, experimenting with combinations of human spices and alien ingredients. Meanwhile, the Zorvax team worked quietly in the corner, their movements precise and calculated. Their leader, Chef Glynn, was known for his ruthless tactics. On the second day of the competition, the Zorvax approached the humans with an unexpected gesture. Chef Glynn offered them a sample of a dish called Varaxian stew, claiming it was a friendly exchange of ideas. The dish was stunning, with a deep, glowing purple hue and an aroma that made Amanda's mouth water. She and her team tasted it cautiously, and the flavors were unlike anything they had ever experienced: rich, spicy, and slightly sweet. This is incredible, Amanda said, impressed. How do you make it? Glynn smiled slyly. It's a family recipe, he said, and then walked away, leaving the humans intrigued. Unbeknownst to the humans, the Varaxian stew was laced with a rare toxin that was harmless to Zorvax, but potentially lethal to other species. Glynn's plan was simple. The humans would incorporate the stew into their final dish, unknowingly poisoning the judges and sabotaging their chances. On the final day of the competition, Amanda decided to include elements of the stew in her dish. She and her team had spent the night recreating the flavors, tweaking them with Earth's own ingredients. The result was a fusion dish they called Cosmic Harmony. It combined the rich flavors of the Varaxian stew with Earth spices and textures, creating something entirely new. As the judges tasted each dish, the tension in the room was palpable. The Zorvax presented their signature dish, a beautiful but cold creation that impressed the judges with its technical brilliance. Then it was the humans' turn. Amanda stepped forward and introduced Cosmic Harmony, explaining how it symbolized the blending of cultures and the potential for unity. The judges took their first bites, and their expressions shifted from curiosity to delight. They praised the dish's complexity, its balance of flavors, and its innovative use of ingredients. One judge even remarked that it was the best dish they'd ever tasted in the competition. Meanwhile, Glynn watched from the sidelines, expecting the toxin to take effect. But as the minutes passed, the judges showed no signs of distress. Instead, they continued to rave about the dish, awarding the humans the highest score of the competition. After the ceremony, Amanda approached Glynn with a smile. "Your stew was the inspiration for our dish," she said. "It's amazing what can happen when we share ideas." Glenn was speechless. How had the humans survived the toxin? He couldn't fathom it. What he didn't know was that Amanda's team had unknowingly neutralized the toxin by combining it with a common earth spice, garlic, which rendered it harmless and even enhanced its flavor. As the humans celebrated their victory, the Zorvax retreated to their quarters, shaken but also intrigued. For the first time, they saw humans not as mere rivals, but as a species capable of turning adversity into innovation. The competition ended with a new understanding between the two species. Amanda's cosmic harmony became a symbol of what could be achieved through collaboration. And though the Zorvax had intended to sabotage the humans, they inadvertently contributed to a dish that would be remembered as the recipe for peace. The interstellar trade station of Xanavar was buzzing with activity. Merchants, diplomats, and travelers from hundreds of species mingled in its sprawling markets and grand halls. Among them was a human delegation led by Captain Emily Hart, on a mission to establish trade agreements with the enigmatic Zorvax. Known for their advanced biochemistry, the Zorvax were famed across the galaxy for their unique cuisine dishes that were as dangerous as they were delicious. The Zorvax had invited the humans to a formal dinner, a gesture of goodwill that carried an unspoken challenge. Zorvax meals were infamous for their use of exotic, often toxic ingredients. While most species found their food deadly, the Zorvax considered it a point of pride. If the humans could handle the meal, it would signify their worthiness as allies. If not, well, no one would blame the Zorvax for an unfortunate accident. The dinner was held in a magnificent crystal chamber, its walls shimmering with bioluminescent patterns. Captain Hart and her team took their seats at the long, transparent table, facing the Zorvax delegation led by Minister Zinn. The centerpiece of the table was a massive platter of Lirvac essence, a traditional Zorvax dish that glowed faintly in the dim light. Its aroma was intoxicating, a mix of sweet, spicy, and something unidentifiable. "Welcome, esteemed humans," Minister Zinn said, his voice smooth and formal. "Tonight, we share our most cherished tradition. The Lirvac essence is a testament to our culinary heritage. Please, enjoy." The humans exchanged wary glances. Emily had read up on Zorvax cuisine and knew it was laced with substances that could overwhelm unprepared digestive systems. Still, she couldn't refuse the gesture without offending their hosts. Taking a deep breath, she picked up her utensils and took a small bite. The flavor was a revelation. It was as if every taste bud had come alive, experiencing a symphony of sensations that were both alien and exhilarating. Sweetness gave way to heat, which then mellowed into a rich umami finish. Around her, the rest of the team hesitated at first, but soon followed her lead, their expressions shifting from caution to delight. "This is incredible," Emily said, genuinely amazed. "I've never tasted anything like it." Minister Zinn's expression flickered with surprise. He had expected the humans to falter, perhaps even collapse. Instead, they were savoring the dish with enthusiasm. "You honor us with your appreciation," Zinn replied, though his voice carried a hint of suspicion. "The Lirvac essence is not for the faint of heart." Unbeknownst to the humans, the dish contained microdoses of a toxin derived from the Voraxian bloom, a rare flower native to Zorvax territory. The toxin was harmless to Zorvax, but known to incapacitate most other species. Zinn had counted on this as a subtle way to test the humans' resilience. As the dinner progressed, the humans continued to praise the food, much to the confusion of their hosts. Emily, ever curious, began asking questions about the ingredients and preparation. "Minister Zinn, the balance of flavors is remarkable," she said. "Is the glowing effect natural, or does it come from a specific spice?" Zinn hesitated. "The glow is a natural property of the Lirvac plant, enhanced by certain techniques passed down through generations," he explained vaguely. Emily's eyes lit up. "Fascinating. Would you consider sharing the recipe? Our chefs would love to learn from such artistry." Zinn's composure cracked slightly. Sharing the recipe would reveal the presence of the toxin, and yet the humans seemed unaffected. Was it possible they were immune? Or was their physiology more adaptable than he had assumed? The meal concluded with a dessert called Velar Mist, a shimmering foam that evaporated on the tongue. By the end of the evening, the humans were laughing and chatting freely, the initial tension replaced by genuine camaraderie. The Zorvaks, meanwhile, were left bewildered. After the humans departed, Zin called an emergency meeting with his advisors. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "The Varaxian bloom should have incapacitated them within minutes. Instead, they asked for the recipe." One of his scientists speculated, perhaps the human's biochemistry is uniquely suited to neutralize the toxin. Or they may have unknowingly combined it with another substance that counteracted its effects. Zin rubbed his temples. "Whatever the reason, this changes everything. We cannot underestimate them again." Meanwhile, back on their ship, Emily and her team were discussing the meal. "That was the best food I've ever had," one of the crew members said. "Agreed," Emily replied. "Though I'm pretty sure they were testing us." "Did you notice how closely they were watching?" "Oh, definitely," another crew member said. "Think the food was spiked?" Emily smiled. "Maybe. But if it was, we handled it just fine. And now they'll think twice before underestimating us." As the ship entered hyperspace, Emily couldn't help but feel a sense of triumph. The dinner had been more than a meal. It was a subtle battle of wills, one the humans had won with their resilience and open-mindedness. Toxic or not, the Zorvak's food had brought them one step closer to understanding each other, proving that even the most dangerous challenges could be transformed into opportunities for connection.